Hi all, this is your Professor Ian. This is a short video with guidance for essay number 2. I've been getting some questions about it, so I thought I'd record a walkthrough. Remember, you're always more than welcome to email me or come by my office hours as well, but maybe this will answer some questions for you. So we'll come down here. Here's the material for essay number 2. Let's start with the proposal. If you open the proposal, take you to that screen. You just open it up. So this is what the proposal looks like. What I'm asking you to do is find 3 articles you could use for the paper. Choose your favorite 2, and a brief rationale why they're your favorite. Are they the most useful ones? Do they just appeal to you? Why do they appeal to you? That kind of thing. And then what you want to do is analyze each of those essays. Now just do it briefly for your proposal, right? How are they using kairos, logos, ethos, pathos? Do you see any fallacies? Anything else you wanted to note you could add to the table, right? This is for your own benefit, right? This is to help you start analyzing these 2 essays, because the point of this second paper is for you to go out and see how other people are using rhetoric, right? The first paper, you got the chance to use these appeals in your own argument. The second one, you're going to go out and analyze and compare and contrast how 2 authors are using these classical appeals and other things that we've talked about in the course. So then, which of these 2 articles do you think is more effective? Why? Again, a little rationale. Which do you think is doing a better job of using one or more of these appeals? And then formulating a specific, preliminary thesis just to get your mind around the main argument of your paper. Remember, a thesis statement is the kind of central building block of a paper, so this is a good starting off point. And then my usual questions about the logistics of the writing process, because often we don't think about this, right? So it's good to think about what challenges you're going to face, how you overcome that, and where and when will you write the paper, right? That's going to help you plan ahead. Okay, so let's take a look at the paper itself. If we come down here, right, we've been reading and learning about different things about rhetoric. Pardon me. Your first task is to find 2 appropriate texts. As I suggest here, it's best to find 2 texts that are about the same topic, right? So 2 about QAnon or 2 about flat earthers. It's going to be easier for you to compare and contrast which is doing a better job with their rhetoric if they're on the same topic. It just makes sense. So you're going to want to find op-eds like we did in that discussion forum, right? Opinion pieces for newspapers. Those are by far the easiest thing to work on for this essay. I've allowed students to use whatever they want in the past, and what I find is that sometimes students will choose less than useful articles, and it just creates a barrier for the student, right? We're just here to practice identifying and thinking about how and why appeals are used and rhetoric is used. So let's make it easy on ourselves and just use op-ed pieces about conspiracy theories. All right, then you want to read the text carefully. You want to use soapstone, use the rhetorical triangle if you want to use that tool to break down and think about what the author's doing. Look for the appeals, look for fallacies, right? Analyze both of these articles first before you start writing. And remember, rhetorical analysis, which we're writing for this paper, isn't about the larger topic. So you're not writing about whether QAnon is real or the earth is flat, for example, for those 2 I talked about. Instead, you're focusing on the rhetoric that the authors, your chosen authors, use in those 2 articles, right? Don't get into whether you think the earth is flat or not, or whatever, right? Or chemtrails. Just talk about how the 2 authors are using pathos or ethos or whatnot. Okay? You want to use selected quotes from your chosen readings, right? This paper is all about using quotes to support your arguments. If you say the author is using pathos to do something, you need to use a quote from that paper and then analyze it and talk about how that is operating in the article. So a good place to start with this one, if we go back to that discussion forum we did, exigency, everybody shared great examples of articles about QAnon, so you could choose from here. Right? This would be a good place if you just want to work on QAnon. This is a good jumping off point. I chose 2 just by random, just going through there. So any of them would work, right? Compare, right? And then your first task is to read through here and analyze how they're using ethos, pathos, and logos, right? In this one, the author is trying to think about why people believe in QAnon, and to do that, he talks with what was his name? Adrian Hahn. Who runs a video game company and talks about it, compares it to video games. It's an interesting comparison that they do. In this one, from the LA Times is more about Trump and the dangers of QAnon. So slightly different topic, but on the same basic idea of QAnon. And you know, he's just analyzing it and looking at some of the things that QAnon does, right? So you get into it, analyze what they're doing. I looked at them briefly. I haven't read them in any great depth, but I can see in the LA Times one, you know, the author is using a lot more sarcasm, right? He says, QAnon has been deemed a fringe political conspiracy theory by the quote, or by the, you know, parentheses, deep state FBI, and one that is very likely to motivate domestic extremists to engage in violent or criminal activity. But that's no problem for Republicans, right? So clear sarcasm being used in this paper, in this article, and there's other examples you could pull out, right? So you could look at the, and we could put that under the heading of pathos, right? The use of humor in rhetoric. So you could compare that sarcastic tone that this author uses to the much more clinical tone that this guy uses, Charlie Warzel. That would be something you could focus on for your paper. But that's just an example. That's just something I pulled out. I just looked at these for a couple minutes just to start thinking. You'd want to do more work. Okay, how are they using this? How are they using that? That's what the proposal is helping you to think about. Oh boy, where'd the instructions go? Anyways, one thing I wanted to say is that, let me just pull up the proposal. So, you know, you want to analyze all these things before you start writing, but you don't have to cover all these things, and you shouldn't try to cover everything, or else you're going to have a very superficial paper. You want to dive in depth into one or two of these appeals, right? So if you could write a whole paper on the different tones, like the sarcasm versus the clinical tone in that paper I just showed you, and how, and tie it maybe with logos, right? In the first paper he uses more facts and tries to use more logos to try to make that argument to convince readers and think about why he does that, and then compare that to the second one where he's very sarcastic and he uses less logos and why he does that, right? What he's trying to convince the reader of. Okay, so that's just some ideas for the paper. Please, again, do email me, come by my office if you have specific questions. Hopefully this video was useful, and good luck with the paper.